Hello all, and welcome to the annual Civil Rights training for 2018. The purpose of this presentation is to give you the tools needed to protect the civil rights of your clients. This presentation will include an introduction to civil rights and the laws that protect our civil rights, an understanding of how civil regulations apply to WIC, and the ability to handle civil rights complaints. After you've completed the training, log into I-TREC and take a short quiz and receive credit for participation. Civil rights is a term that is often used, but you may be unclear on what it really means, especially in regard to the WIC program. Civil rights can be defined as the rights of citizens to political and social freedom and equality. We often talk about civil rights as protection against discrimination. An important concept to understand when talking about civil rights is the difference between prejudice and discrimination. Prejudice is a preconceived opinion that is not based on reason. Discrimination is the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people, like on the grounds of race, age, or sex. So prejudice is a thought or opinion, and discrimination is an act. So it would be the difference between just having particular feelings about a certain group of people and discriminating against them, denying them benefits or treating them differently, things like that. We've had civil rights laws in the United States from the beginning to promote equality and fairness among certain groups. The first 10 amendments of the Constitution, known as the Bill of Rights, established several civil rights, including the right to practice a religion freely, the right to free speech, and the right to assemble peacefully, among others. Additional civil rights constitutional amendments have been added to expand the net of protections. These include the 13th Amendment that abolished slavery and the 15th, 19th, and 24th Amendments that protect the right to vote based on race, color, and sex. The 14th Amendment, passed in 1968, addresses citizenship rights and equal protection of laws in response to issues related to former slavery following the American Civil War. It has been used successfully in a variety of landmark cases, including Brown versus the Board of Education, racial discrimination in school, Roe versus Wade, which concerned reproductive rights, and the University of California versus Back, which had to do with racial quotas in education. In addition to the constitutional amendments, other laws have been passed to protect civil rights. One of the most well-known is the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that outlawed discrimination and segregation based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Many other laws have been passed since the 1960s, including the Age Discrimination Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Equal Pay Act, and the Family and Medical Leave Act that protect the civil rights of many groups of people. Now that we have a background on civil rights, let's discuss how civil rights regulations apply to WIC and your day-to-day responsibilities. WIC is run locally but funded federally and administered by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The Food and Nutrition Service is the agency of the USDA that is responsible for federal nutrition programs and provides guidance on civil rights. FNS regulations state that no person shall, on the grounds of race, color, national origin, age, sex, or disability be excluded from participation in, denied benefits of, or otherwise subjected to discrimination by any program, including WIC. These characteristics are known as protected classes. As a WIC employee, this means you have an obligation and responsibility to treat everyone as a valued customer, because they are. You're expected to treat all clients fairly and provide consistent, excellent customer service to everyone, particularly in regards to race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. There are other federal policies that deal with day-to-day operations at the clinic to prevent and deal with discrimination. All FNS assistance programs must include a public notification system. The purpose of this system is to inform applicants, participants, and potentially eligible persons of the program availability, program rights and responsibilities, the policy of non-discrimination, and the procedure for filing a complaint. A copy of the latest USDA poster and Justice for All must be displayed in each clinic where it can be easily seen. This poster lets clients know whom to contact if they feel they have experienced discrimination in the WIC program. Materials that are distributed to the public or posted for public viewing must include the USDA non-discrimination statement in a prominent place on the materials. The full statement must be used for longer documents, like the eWIC brochure, and for WIC newspaper advertisements, radio or television announcements, or other outreach materials that are less than 1 page, may use the short non-discrimination statement. Similarly, clients need to be told about their civil rights and other rights they have regarding their participation in the WIC program, and to understand their responsibilities. At each certification, you are required to have the client or caregiver read or have read to them the rights and responsibilities of participating in the WIC program. Staff must verbally review the highlighted parts of the form. The client must sign the form via electronic signature and stars. If the signature cannot be captured electronically, the form will be printed and manually signed, and a copy must be kept in the daily, weekly, or monthly files. It is also printed in the food list in both English and Spanish. If a client reads Spanish, the form should be provided in Spanish. If the client does not read English or Spanish, the statement should be read to the person in a language that the client understands. You can do this by calling a telephone translation service. A client who cannot write can make an X or other symbol to acknowledge that they have read or heard the information. The staff member should acknowledge the mark by initialing it. Each local agency should make arrangements to make program information available to people who do not speak English or who may have limited English-speaking ability. Program information should be provided to such persons in the appropriate language, orally or in writing. Local agencies who serve a significant number of non-English speaking clients should hire bilingual staff members or interpreters to serve non-English speaking or limited English speaking persons. If no staff is available to translate, there is a phone service available with translations in a wide variety of languages. Program materials should be developed in the languages used by the local WIC populations. People with disabilities who require alternative means of communication of program information, such as information in Braille, large print, or by audio tape, can be directed to the USDA's Target Center. The phone number for the Target Center can be found on the Injustice for All poster and in the long non-discrimination statement, which is on the R&R form and on most WIC materials. WIC agencies must make reasonable accommodations for people with disabilities. Reasonable accommodations for those with physical disabilities are those that can be made without much difficulty or expense. This would include things like adding grab bars on walls or ramping a few steps. Any renovations to property are required to meet construction standards for accessibility. If any clinic sites are not available to disabled persons, a written local policy will be developed that describes other ways that services will be provided to disabled people. These might include making home visits or doing appointments through Skype or other similar services and loading the client's eWIC card without them having to go to the clinic. It is a federal requirement to collect information by race and ethnic category for each applicant or client on the WIC program. Collecting and tracking this information helps us assure that the WIC program is administered in a non-discriminatory manner. This step is completed as part of the application process in STARS and is a requirement in the WIC certification guide. Staff should explain that the data is being collected for statistical purposes only and has nothing to do with whether or not the applicant or client gets or can stay on the program. A client's ethnicity is determined by asking whether a client is Hispanic or not. The race of the client will be determined by asking the client which racial group they belong to: Black, White, Asian, or American Indian. There are options to enter specific tribal data. If the client does not wish to identify themselves with a particular ethnic group, the staff member must determine the client's ethnicity and race by visual observation. It is ITCA's job to make sure that each local agency complies with the requirements of the Civil Rights Regulations. We want to make sure that clients are treated as fairly as possible and are well informed of their rights. During the monitoring visit, ITCA will be looking for the Injustice for All posters, that the Injustice for All posters are prominently displayed in main and field clinics. The local agency has a plan to address accessibility for the disabled. arrangements are made to communicate with non-English speaking clients. Public notification and outreach are done and translated into languages of the community served. Annual public notification and regular outreach is required to reach as many potential eligible clients as possible. That the non-discrimination statement is included on any public notification and outreach materials. The clients are given an opportunity to read or have the rights and responsibilities form read to them before signing. That the highlighted parts of the rights and responsibility form are always verbally discussed, and that the annual civil rights training is completed by all staff. In this next section, we'll discuss what to do when you receive a civil rights complaint. Civil rights complaints are very serious, so it's important for staff to be able to recognize civil rights complaints and handle them properly according to federal regulation. The first part of handling a complaint is to determine whether or not it is a civil rights complaint. People may or may not come right out and say that they've been discriminated against. You want to listen for words such as unfair or discrimination and consider the client's race, ethnicity, language they speak, or country they are from. You may need to ask for clarification from the client to find out more about their complaint. Some questions you may need to ask are, do you think you were treated unfairly? Why do you think you were treated unfairly? And do you think there is a reason you were treated the way that you were? Let's look at a couple of scenarios and see if you can tell if what occurred was discrimination, poor customer service, or if you need more information. This man walks into the WIC clinic and asks what he needs to do to get WIC benefits. The clerk tells him, WIC is only for women and children. You don't qualify. Maybe try the food bank. Is this discrimination, poor service, or do you need information? This would be discrimination if the man was told no just based on his age and his gender. What you would need to ask is, do you have custody of any children under 5 years old, or were you looking to get on WIC yourself? If he was just made a mistake and was looking to get on WIC himself and didn't know, then the response the clerk gave would be fine, but he very well could have children under 5 years old in his custody. Likewise, it would be discrimination by a vendor if the man tells you that a store wouldn't allow him to purchase foods with his EWIC card because of his gender and age. For the second scenario, Lydia comes to the WIC clinic with her 2 children. The staff person is not friendly at all and completes the appointment as quickly as possible. Lydia feels like she's being treated differently than the other clients in the clinic. Is this discrimination, poor service, or do you need information? She's definitely been treated poorly, especially if she can tell the difference between how she's treated with how other clients are treated, but it may or may not be a civil rights complaint. You have to dig a little bit deeper. So religion is not a protected class, but national origin is. So if the staff person discriminated against her because she was a Muslim woman, then that would not be a civil rights complaint, although you would definitely want to deal with that issue. However, if the staff person has a problem with people from Iran or Iraq and perceived this person to be from there and discriminated against them in that way, then it definitely would be a civil rights complaint. When in doubt, though, always inform the client of their rights to file a complaint and help them with the process. That brings us to our last topic, how to handle a possible civil rights complaint. The rules for handling complaints in general may vary between local WIC agencies, but civil rights complaints must be handled in a very specific way. After identifying a possible civil rights complaint, take the following steps. Step 1. Explain the process for filing a formal complaint. Regardless of whether they'd like to file the complaint or not, you should inform the client of the rules for filing complaints and how to do so. Complainants, or the person making the complaint, have up to 180 days from the occurrence of an incident to file the complaint. Let them know where to find the USDA program discrimination complaint forms and how to submit it. This information is on the Injustice for All poster and the long non-discrimination statement, which is on the R&R and most WIC materials. Lastly, offer your assistance in filing the complaint. 2 is to ask the client or applicant if they would like to make a formal civil rights complaint. If the client does not choose to make a formal complaint to USDA, you can handle the complaint internally according to your local agency policy. If the client does choose to make a complaint, make every effort to get the following information: the complainant's name, address, phone number, or other means of being reached, Anonymous complaints are accepted, however, it's difficult to investigate an anonymous complaint, so getting that information is really important. The specific location where the incident occurred, the nature of the incident that led the complainant to feel that discrimination had occurred, and the persons against whom the complaint is filed, the basis on which the complainant feels discriminated against, so by race, color, national origin, age, sex, or disability, the names, jobs titles, and addresses of persons who may have witnessed what happened, the date or dates during which the alleged discrimination occurred, or if it continued over a period of time, during which time period did it take place, and lastly, the date the complaint was filed and with whom. Step 3 is that the local agency must refer all complaints of discrimination to the USDA Director, Office of Civil Rights. The contact information for this person, like most important civil rights information, can be found on the Injustice for All poster or the long form of the non-discrimination statement. Step 4, the local agency must notify the state agency of the complaint. The local agency needs to immediately notify the ITCA WIC Director of the complaint by phone, and then submit a written copy of the complaint to ITCA within 4 working days. At that point, another set of procedures may take place, sometimes ending with the USDA making an investigation into the local agency. Step 5, the local agency must log the complaint in STARS and maintain it on file for 3 years and 5 months. The state agency must maintain them in a file with all the above information. This completes all the information we wanted to share with you today. In summary, in the United States, value is placed on safeguarding citizen civil rights. The Constitution includes civil rights protections like free speech, freedom of religion, and voting and citizenship rights, among others. Additional federal regulation has been passed to further defend the rights of certain groups of people like minorities, women, and the disabled. As a federal food assistance program, WIC is obligated to treat all clients fairly. Accommodations must be made based on language spoken and disability to ensure all clients can utilize the program. Clients must also be informed of their rights through hanging the Injustice for All poster, including the non-discrimination statement on the outreach and other materials, and reading and reviewing the Rights and Responsibilities form. WIC must take particular care to not discriminate based on protected classes, race, color, national origin, age, sex, or disability. Lastly, civil rights complaints should be taken very seriously. Staff must follow up with complaints, taking the time to gather information, make sure the client is well informed and supported through the process of filing the complaint, and passing along information to both the USDA and ITCA. Thank you for completing the civil rights training. Don't forget to log into I-TREC and take the quiz to receive credit. Thanks, bye-bye.